Heyo, this is the Armchair Critic, and welcome to my disembodied commentary for my favorite horror movie, the 1982 Steven Spielberg classic Poltergeist. If you'd like to follow along with me, just hit play on your DVD now, and you'll see good old Leo the Lion. Now, a little bit of information about why I'm doing this. There's never been a proper DVD that did this, that had any kind of commentary, which always drives me nuts. I mean, I know Spielberg famously does not do commentaries for his own reasons, but it seems to me that somebody somewhere along the way should have at least tried to do commentary or put some kind of bells and whistles on the DVD. Usually when you get it, it's all just the only extra is like the trailer. I never felt this thing got its proper due DVD-wise. So the movie opens on this extreme close-up of a CRT television as the station is signing off. And I'm reminded of what Roger Ebert said in his original review of this movie. He said, "We're being invited to look between the dots on the screen and see something else, and see what Carol Ann sees." And that's true. We're invited to kind of see the thing through her view. And by the way, all these World War II images, World War II is a sort of an undercurrent here. Of course, World War II bred the modern age of commercialism and the way people live now. And in the 1980s, when this movie came out, commercialism was a big thing. People were going back to the economic boom that they had in the 1950s. So subtly, World War II comes around occasionally through this film, and I'll point it out. So we begin with this beautiful golden retriever just kind of going around looking for something to eat. This movie does something that other horror movies don't, and, well, I should say, there is one thing that other horror movies do that this one doesn't. I know that sounds confusing, sorry. In other horror movies, or in other haunted house movies, rather, there is always, the family's like moving into the house in the first scene. And that always drives me crazy, because it's like, they're moving in, so it always feels like they're just pawns on a chessboard, just pieces to move around. The great thing about this movie is that you feel like the family has lived there for years. I read the novelization, and they've been there since the mid-70s. And there's a feeling of comfort with this family. We know that they've been there for years. This is their sanctuary, their place of safety. So it makes it a lot more palatable when something comes into your sanctuary than just comes into a place that you're occupying for the first time. So we begin with Carol Ann in front of the TV set. Probably one of the most famous images in movie history. She's supposed to be sleepwalking. I don't know much about sleepwalking. I don't know if people who sleepwalk are quite this lucid, or have conversations like this. I don't know anything about sleepwalking, but I guess for the purposes of this movie, I mean, I'm sure she's talking to ghosts, but I tried at one point when I had a CRT television, an old tube television, to duplicate this lighting effect. You can't. I think it had some kind of external help. It flashes, but not quite that much. But of course you want it to be kind of eerie and, strange. All of that. Of course, she puts her hands on it. One of the most iconic images in movie history. And then we move from the dark into the light. And This is an interesting contrast because you have these dead trees and this dead grass on this sort of barren hill, and then you move down to the valley with all this abundance of life, and you can see the hills behind them don't really have they're sort of barren. They're kind of dead. So, I guess the message is death is all around us. These images of the rooftops, by the way, were used again. There's an episode of Quantum Leap that came along a couple of years later that takes place in 1981. Particularly this image right here of the gremlin going down the road were used in the Quantum Leap episode called Another Mother. It was the opening, just like it is in this movie. Check it out at some point. They stole it from here. I don't know if it's the same studio or not, but God, how many times is Spielberg's name on this? I've counted at least 4 times that his name is on this. If you're my age, and I was 10 years old when this movie came out, if you're my age, this is the kind of neighborhood you recognize. Spielberg understood our neighborhoods and our lives and our, sort of American way of life better than anybody else. I just noticed that real estate sign says Teague Group. Teague is Steve's boss. But if you're my age, you recognize this because people are outside. There's all this abundance of life going on. There's an ice cream truck, and there's all this stuff going on outside. People are mowing the lawn. People are showing houses, or real estate agents are showing houses. And what's interesting is that that's changed. Nowadays, you go outside on a Sunday afternoon, rather, and there's nobody there because everybody's inside. They're inside with air conditioning and things like that. Video games. This is interesting. Somebody pointed this out, that Dana is eating pickles and ice cream, or in the bowl what looks like cauliflower. There's some suggestion that she's sexually active, that she may be pregnant. I don't know. We don't know that much about Dana. Now here's an interesting thing. This scene right here represents the only death in the entire movie. And of course that's Tweety. The canary is the only real casualty. Everybody else is kind of dead. Despite the corpses and ghosts and all that, Canary is the only death. Which is strange because coming off of Spielberg's previous film, which was Raiders of the Lost Ark, which had an abundance of deaths, most of them, murders, grisly deaths, what have you. It's interesting that he kind of pulled the reins back a little bit. What's interesting is the adults in this movie are kind of hostile. We're watching Steve argue with the neighbor over the remote control, and I've always thought it was interesting. Apparently, they don't like each other because you notice Steve didn't invite him to the football game. I don't think these guys are actually friends. I think they're actually probably clients or co-workers or what have you. But let me go with the canary. The toilet seat cover is the same color as the canary. A lot of bright colors in this movie. I'm going to talk frequently in this commentary about the novelization, which I read last year, which is almost completely different from the book. It's really not even about the Vreeling family. I'll get into that later, but climbs the tree. And what's interesting is this scene that takes place in and around the house in the book actually took place around a birthday party, Robbie's 8th birthday party. And, Diane was getting ready for it and getting ready for the kids and the parents and what have you. And she sort of, or later on, there's a scavenger hunt. And Robbie goes outside and he goes around the house at one point, and there's the bricks. And he reaches in the bricks and something bites him. And he pulls the bricks back, and it's the clown. And later at night, when he's in bed, he's kind of surprised to see it there. That is a nasty looking storm. Oliver Robbins said the storm was added later, and the wind that's blowing his hair is actually a fan. I guess the death of the canary kind of signals Carol Ann's nurturing side. Because you notice immediately after this, she wants goldfish. She's always wanting something to care for, and of course that signals, when she's on the other side, she takes care of all of the. When she's on the other side, she actually takes care of all the dead people who are lost. And now she's got Tweety 2 and Tweety 3, original names, I know. Captain America, another World War II reference. Even Star Wars was based on World War II movies. Here's something interesting about the tree. If you notice when the lightning flashes on it, on the left side actually looks like the profile of someone's face. I always thought that was really, really creepy. It actually looks like it has several faces on it. We saw this sort of weird totem in the second movie. I guess that was based on this. I hated the second movie, by the way, because it steps on everything this movie was about. See, if the family were just moving in, we wouldn't have scenes like this. Scenes of getting comfortable with the family, observing their rituals within their home. And, the kids have, the parents want the kids to be comfortable and safe. And the mother's nurturing, tucks the kids into bed, into what she hopes will be their nest of safety. And I always thought it was strange that Carol Ann wants the closet light, and later on the closet light will take her away. It's just interesting that they've established this as sort of, Diane thinks this is their den of safety, when this becomes later the most dangerous spot in the house. Things are not as they seem. The movie on the TV set here is it's a 1943 romance called A Guy Named Joe. That's Spencer Tracy, by the way. It's about a man who dies and comes back to life comes back to Earth to clear up some unfinished business, so to speak. And another World War II reference. This is interesting. You get, and I understand this from my parents, there are always two sides of your parents. There's the one that you see, the front they put on when you're around. And then there's the side that they have when they're alone together. Of course, they're in bed and flirting with each other, and of course smoking pot, which is apparently this is controversial, mildly controversial, I should say. I had a friend who, when he watched this movie as a kid, he wasn't allowed to watch this scene. The corpses, the face peeling, the clown, all of that was okay. The rest of the movie was okay. The pot smoking, no. You can't watch that. I like this, this scene, because it kind of tells us a little bit about the parents, that they're not just stolid, Ward and June Cleaver. They're still holding on. I mean, they're in their 30s. And they're still holding on to what they had before. The kind of people that they were before. And it's interesting, they're kids from the free love generation from the 60s. And now, 20 years later, they've gotten into the nest of commercialism and very Americanism kind of thing, but they're not giving up their pot. I tried this recently, this before and after thing. I can easily do the before, I can't do the after anymore. I think I've gotten fat. I took a film class last year, and I did a study of this scene, and it's interesting. This is a special effects movie, but here is a scene that has no special effects, except for the lightning. It's just mood and music and tone and props. And of course there's a clown that terrified my generation. There are all kinds of images of comfort and safety, but there's these ominous things. Someone is watching. Someone that you don't watch when watching your kids. See, he takes the jacket and he throws it over the clown, but wouldn't it have been a little more... Wouldn't it have been a little easier if he'd taken it and thrown it in the closet? I guess in that moment you're not thinking about that, but... This is interesting. The parents kind of turn here from the playful, flirtatious, kind of rude, I love it when you talk dirty kind of thing, smoking pot. Then all of a sudden the kid comes to the door and boom, we go right back to parents. It's it's just kind of interesting. So yeah, put out the joint. Like the kid can't smell it. But in the book, Steve gives a little more information about when they built the house and why he built it there. But the most interesting thing is that he mentions that the tree has a name. It's Ebenezer. I never really noticed this, but I think that tree kind of looks like something you would find in an old cemetery. Dead old tree. Which, if you you know the rest of this movie, you know what that means. And by the way, if you're watching this movie, if you're listening to this commentary and you have not seen the movie, why? Because I'm giving away spoilers right and left. And if you haven't seen the movie, this commentary, most of this commentary will basically mean nothing to you. This counting game that he gives Robbie, it doesn't work. I've tried it a lot. I've tried it quite a few times. It doesn't work. I even tried it as an adult and it doesn't work. Of course, I'm not as afraid of lightning as I was earlier in my life. Something I noticed, and this may just be me, but I noticed that Carol Ann seems a little spaced away. I mean, they pay attention to her, but she seems a little spaced away from the rest of the family. Maybe that's emblematic of how much they miss her when she's gone. But it's just it's something strange that I noticed. She just seems distant from everybody else. Now Dana, on the other hand, is distant from the family and sort of absent for most of this movie, mostly because she's 16, she's a teenager, and you know, the 16-year-old, you don't want to hang around with the family. That tree looks like it's from Lord of the Rings. You shall not pass, you know. On stormy nights, this is generally where I ended up, but I was such a wiggle worm. I was never in the bed with my parents. I was always on the floor next to the bed. Here's the funny thing. We are 21 minutes into this movie, and there haven't been any special effects, really. And that shows a lot of restraint. A lot of directors feel that you got to sort of smack the audience in the face with special effects in the beginning, otherwise they'll run for the lobby to get their money back. Spielberg had a lot of confidence with this, you know, and his writers. They had a lot of confidence with this, to know that you've got to set everything up. You've got to establish it. You can't just, it's not a chess game. You can't just throw things at the screen. So this, at the 23-minute mark, is actually the first time that we ever see a special effect in this movie. That flickering effect is eerie. I notice she doesn't wake anybody up either. And her hair is perfect. You notice that? Now, there are a lot of scary things in this movie, but this scene right here coming up scared the pee-jiggers out of me when I was a kid. I mean, it just... this hand that comes out of the TV in a second. I saw this for the first time on television. I saw it when it debuted on HBO. That hand right there, I think I missed the next 15 minutes of the movie because I had to go to the bathroom because it just scared the hell out of me. I love optical effects. Optical effects just seem to be a little more eerie. This scene reminds me very much of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Although I never quite understood the purpose of this. It's like, are they going from the TV into the wall? I don't really quite get that. And what's with the earthquake? This is a movie you don't ask too many questions, you know. Actually, what she said was, "They're all here." It's just what you heard was, "They're here." Because if you watch her lips move, that's what she said. So now we come back to the next day, and they're digging up the pool, and ultimately digging up the canary, by the way. It's there's something I have to talk about also, is that part of the legacy of this movie is who really directed it. So I didn't really want to talk about this, but with this movie it kind of goes with the territory. According to Oliver Robbins, who plays Robbie, he did an interview not too long ago in which he his eyewitness account was that it was Tobe Hooper that did most of the directing. Spielberg's hands were all over it, but it was mainly Tobe Hooper. This was Spielberg's baby. This was one of two projects he was working on at the time. The reason he didn't direct this was because he was under contractually obligated, because he was still working on E.T. at the time. And by the way, E.T. opened a week after this movie. And the DGA wouldn't allow him to direct two movies at the same time. So he did everything else, but he put the directing reins in the hands of Tobe Hooper. And you can see clearly, when you watch this movie, which parts of it are Spielberg and which parts of it are Tobe Hooper. Because you can see everybody was in the Spielberg movie, and then Marty Casella, who played Marty in this movie, says, I was in the Tobe Hooper movie. You know, he got the face peeling and the maggots and all of that. And as much love and care and attention as Spielberg put into this movie, it always frustrates me that years later he would kind of dismiss it as just a roller coaster ride. That when he spoke about it, there wasn't any real affection for it. I guess he felt a little closer to E.T. than he did to this. To me, this movie means much more than that. It's sort of the dark side of his vision of America. You know, that post-70s, 80s boom kind of, you know, the one that he displayed like in Jaws and Close Encounters. And this, to me, was during Spielberg's golden age, when his movies were fun. And I respect him later as a filmmaker, because he, you know, when he got serious, you know, and he made great movies like Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan and Munich. I respect him greatly for that, but I think his fun movies really ended with Jurassic Park. Since then, I haven't really seen anything fun from him. Though I do love his films. I really loved Lincoln, and I loved Schindler's List. I always wondered about this scene with the dog. It's like, what is the dog looking at? Does she see the spot on the wall? And it's kind of strange. They say that dogs and babies can see things that people who are older and more conscious-driven can't see. And but why is he barking at the spot? You know. And, you know, of course, why does he bring in a sweet toy? What exactly is he looking at? I'm looking at this kitchen, and it's wonderful. It's like, you know, I keep going on and on about this, but, you know, the lived-in feeling of a house, you know, you see that things have been there for years. The production designer on this did a wonderful job. And here's a scene coming up that a lot of people think is one of the scariest scenes in the movie, and I agree. The She comes back to the table, and the chairs are pulled out. This is done in one take. Watch this. She goes to get the cleaning supplies. She comes back, and there they are. But it's like, as savvy as I am about movies, I really don't know how they did that in one take. If they did that in one take, I really don't know. But it's just kind of one of those things. There are a couple of scenes in this. There's one late in the film where I don't know how they did it, and it probably could be easily explained, but to be honest with you, I don't really want to know. There's a scene in the book. Actually, this scene in the book takes place late in the afternoon, after Diane has come back from taking her to a psychologist to talk about her sleepwalking. Taking Carol Ann to a psychologist to talk about her sleepwalking. This is an interesting... That cut right there, where we had... we went from that kitchen to this kitchen that we're in now, where this couple is coming to look at the house. It's the exact same house. I mean, it's the exact same house. You know, the counter, the door, and everything. It's really great. That was an interesting edit. This is also one of a handful of scenes that take place away from the house. As I've counted it, and my counter may be off, but there are only 4 scenes in this entire movie that take place outside the Freeling house. This one, the scene where they go next door to talk to the neighbor, the scene where Stephen goes to Dr. Lesch's office, and then the scene at the end in the motel. Everything else takes place in the house, so it's very claustrophobic. I like that about it. This is kind of an odd scene. This is a movie that's very, very heavy on pans instead of edits, instead of quick cuts. Even though coming up is one of the worst edits I've ever seen in my life. There's also a continuity error. Well, I wouldn't call it a continuity error, but just kind of an interesting thing. If you watch carefully, when she puts the chair down, it has rollers on the bottom of it, and then when he picks it up, it doesn't. Notice she's moved the table. Yeah, see, the chair has rollers there. Carol Ann's seen so much of it, she's tired of it. It's like... And then, of course, he picks it up and there are no rollers on it. Odd. You know. See, and you'll see this weird pan when Carol Ann moves. It's just very, very strange. Kind of a weird special effects edit. Well, not a pan, but rather a weird edit. This edit right here, this cut scene right here, I'm sorry I'm boring you with edits, but this can't be unspoken about. That right there, it just like cuts her off in the middle. She's talking, and the first time I saw this, I thought it was the network that I was watching it on. doing that, I thought, well, they've kind of crumped this movie up, which would be nothing which would be nothing compared with what they do with movies nowadays. But that edit was just bad. Now that edit, the editor here, I hate to drag this out, but the editor here is Michael Kahn, who's been the editor for almost every Spielberg movie. It's an awkward scene. You know, you're trying to make a joke out of something that's totally strange and bizarre, and again, they don't like these people. They don't like the Tuthills. You sort of live next door to them in mutual tolerance. And I've always wondered why, you know, with all the noise going on next door and all the flashing and lights and all that kind of stuff, the neighbors never seemed to notice anything until the end. I kind of stepped outside the movie and tried to figure out what exactly the ghosts are doing. It's like they're obviously plotting this and they're waiting to see what. They're obviously kind of diverting the parents away so they can take off with the kids. Of course, everything. This is the scene where everything goes to hell. Counting game comes back to bite him in the butt. Of course, he stays on the bed, but I guarantee you if that had happened to me, man, I'd have been... By that point, I would have been at that hotel at the end. Now that scene where the door opens, that was the very first scene I ever saw from the movie. I remember these things. They're just little things. But... that little door opening there where it opens up the closet, that always creeped me out a little bit. To be honest, the tree never quite scared me like the clown does. The clown's kind of, I guess, just because the face turns at the end, but it's a small bedroom, by the way. Now, in the book, the objects in the room, excuse me, the objects in the room didn't go in the closet. They were outside the closet when they got there. And I guess the tree's trying to eat him. I don't get that. Yeah, just the tree never really bothered me quite like some of the other things in the movie. There's a continuity error here, where she's holding onto the bedpost, and you notice she lets go of it right there, and see she's still got it in her hands. This movie plays on not only the kids' fears, but also on the parents. You know, your children being snatched out of their beds in the middle of the night. You know, kind of a Lindbergh baby kind of situation. But it's just kind of strange. It's like would be easy to deal with just the kids, but then you play on the parents' fears as well. Well, I guess fears of a family, I guess. Like I said, everything in the room in the book was outside the closet door, and the clown was in the corner. I noticed there that Dana laughs, and then Steven just kind of looks at her and kind of lightly shakes his head. I never noticed that before. I love that toy robot. It's like, it's just laughing at him. It's like, we got her. We got what we wanted. I noticed the problems all started when they started digging up that swimming pool. The problems with Carol Ann started earlier, but I noticed the real problems in this started when they started digging up this pool. Now, in the movie here, he jumps in the water to see if he can find her. In the book, Steve and Diane just kind of dig around in the pool with their hands, seeing if seeing if she's just seeing if she's in there. This kid would be in therapy till he was 50. And I swear he looks like he's covered in blood. It's like, oh God, what next? How do you get a child out of the television set? It's like, what do we do now? Well, in this case, you go to see a parapsychologist. This scene in the book actually took place in the Freelings' living room. There's a long build up to this. Most of the movie is about, or most of the book is about Dr. Lesh and Tangina. It's about their relationship. The Freelings are kind of supporting players in the book. It's the bulk of it is how they come to find the Freelings. By the way, in the book, these three are given names. Marty's name is Marty Landrewski. Dr. Lesh's first name is Martha, and Ryan's last name is Mitchell. And Ryan is a skeptic. But there's a long build-up because Dr. Lesh has had an association with Tangina, because Tangina's had these psychic abilities and feelings and things. Basically the same thing Carol Ann's going through ever since she was a child. And so they're doing all these tests on her. And at one point they put her under hypnosis. And they put her under hypnosis. She's in a laboratory. And she starts to get, the scanners start to spike or whatever. And she starts pinpointing a location. And they put her in a van, still in a trance, put her in a van with all these electrodes on her head, and they're driving around Southern California, the valley, all night, and they come to all of a sudden Tangina jumps up and starts running, and she ends up at the Freelings' front door. That's how they meet. This scene I love when Ryan is talking about, I had a Matchbox car, it took it took several hours to get across a linoleum surface, trying to sound impressive, and look what and Steven's got this look on his face like, yeah, let me show you my Matchbox cars. According to Marty Casella, when they opened this door, when they were making this, when they opened the door, basically they were all looking at a blue screen, and Steven was standing there pointing at what they were actually supposed to, where they were actually supposed to be looking. The Hulk and the compass and the books and all of that. You can actually see the matte lines. This was back in the 80s, of course. But yeah, the book really breaks away from after Carol Ann is kidnapped. The movie really breaks away from them, the family, for a while, and we get that long scene with Tangina and the parapsychologist, and she's just sort of running up the hill, and she eventually ends up at their front door. It's like they come together, even though they're not looking for each other. In the book, Marty was not in this scene. All of his dialogue was spoken by Ryan, which is odd because they had already established that he was a skeptic. And I like that they actually stop and explain this. The difference between a haunting and a poltergeist. Hauntings about possession of a place. Poltergeist is possession of a person. Dr. Lesh actually calls him Dr. Casey, but in the book his name is Landrewski. I like this look that Dr. Lesh gives her. It's kind of like, I understand, go ahead. See, I love this movie because you care about the people. And that's always the draw. I see so many horror films now where the characters are essentially just something you set up to knock down. Wow, those are big speakers. Something you set up to knock down, and you don't really care about them. You don't really know them. They die off, and you don't know anything about them. And when they're gone, it's like you don't really miss them. That was actually the problem with the Amityville Horror, which came out 3 years before this. Which I think this movie does everything right that movie did wrong. Which was so... I hated that movie. I have never liked an Amityville Horror movie, ever. And it's all because they're just empty. It's all just shocks, and it's all stunts. I talked earlier about, when they set up the characters just to be, like on a chessboard. Just pieces on a chessboard. That's what the characters of those movies are. That's what separates this one from that one. There was actually a deleted scene in this where Marty runs upstairs and we go with him. Now in the book, we actually go, he sort of goes room to room, and sort of goes room to room, just checking cabinets and doors and things like that. He gets to the kid's bedroom, and it's locked. And now, according to Marty Casella, there's like a deleted scene. He had filmed it where he goes up there and he checks the door and it won't open, and he actually flies up into the air and something bites at his flesh and just slams him down onto the ground. And it's he said he went into detail about how elaborate the stunt was, that he had to be harnessed up and all of this. And Steven came to him the next day and told him, said, I'm sorry, but I gotta cut it, because it would interrupt the flow of this scene, where Carol Ann moves through Diane. Marty Casella knew Spielberg personally. He was his production assistant on Raiders of the Lost Ark. The flow of this scene is odd. It goes back and forth, sort of between terror and hope. It's like it just kind of ebbs back and forth. I love this when they look, they're kind of following the noise. It reminds me of The Haunting. The original, not the remake. Well, yeah, this is where that scene would have been with Marty. And they cut it down to just him coming down the stairs. See, it's a very hopeful scene. It's like she knows she's still there. The presence is still there, even if she's not. I always thought it was interesting. Is like there are looks at Dr. Lash. There are looks that Beatrice Straight has. Beatrice Straight plays Dr. Lash. There are looks that she has. It's like she's been studying this stuff for years. She's been studying this stuff for years, and finally she sees evidence of it. She's got this look. Here's another bad edit. Carol Ann moves through the room, and then the beast moves through the room too. And then it just cuts. It's just, there's some really weird edit choices in this. There's just some, I don't want to blame Michael Kahn, but and here's where we get Marty back. They go up, he's like, they won't let you in. See, he doesn't even mention going up and flying up in the air, I guess. I love that shot of the exterior, the darkness in the hills and then all the light in the city. Sort of reminiscent of what we saw earlier. Spielberg's films, if there's a pattern in all of his films, this is going to sound strange, but if there's a pattern in his films, it's always communication, or lack thereof. There's always some lack of communication, and whether it's languages or interspecies, international, what have you. We kind of saw that in Close Encounters. We saw a little of that in Raiders, with all the different languages coming in, the German, the American, what have you. And here, talking across, trouble communicating across dimensions. it's a theme in Spielberg's work, and it's very subtle. You don't notice it right away, but and there's a like I said earlier, there's a major difference between Spielberg's approach to a scene and Tobe Hooper's approach to it. Tobe Hooper directs scenes very fast, like in Chainsaw Massacre. When he has an action scene, it goes very fast. Spielberg wants us to follow a point, and this is something that happens in all of his films, is that his films always slow down to kind of have these quiet, childlike moments. And I love the vulnerability here. It's like Dr. Lesh just kind of explains, it's like, I don't really know what I'm doing. You know, I've given my life to this. You know, it's a hobby, basically. It's like, it's not a profession. You know, it's not something where I can get a degree for it. And she admits to being frightened. I like that. See, it would have been easier for Dr. Lesh just to be all science and technical talk and things, but they give her a little bit of humanity here. I was raised Southern Baptist, so this speech kind of goes against everything that I was taught. You know, soul goes to heaven, that's it. But the whole thing about the spectral light and all of that, this whole thing she talks about here with the spectral light, it's like, I never heard that. Like I say, I saw this movie when I was 10, and I'd never heard of spectral light or anything like that. I love how he mentions also he mentions the rope, and I've always wondered if that gave them the idea to use the rope. I remember being a kid and listening to this when she's talking about the wonderful light, trying to visualize it based on what had been put in my head concrete about the afterlife. This is a very, very Spielberg moment. Or Spielberg scene, I should say. It's quiet and the dark, and it's kind of childlike in a way. It's people dealing with things they don't understand. That's what E.T. was about. That's what Close Encounters was about. It's like dealing with things you don't really understand, but some people get lost on the way to the light. That's a scary thing. And Robbie kind of scares himself a little bit. Beatrice Straight won an Oscar a couple of years before this for being a network, and she has the record for giving the shortest performance of anybody ever who ever won an Oscar. Her entire role in Network, she plays William Holden's wife, is about 5.5 minutes long. You could fit it in a commercial break, but it's really good. She just sort of, her husband's been cheating on her, and she shows her outrage. Now, some people have believed that there's a continuity error in that that Tangina says that she will only hear her mother's voice, and then two people talk to her. But and of course, two people, talk to her. Her dad talks to her later, and Robbie talks. But you notice that they don't respond. She doesn't respond back, so maybe she only hears the voice. Now, let me tell you something. This scene where Marty goes in the kitchen is really, really, in the book was, I swear, almost like out of Raiders of the Lost Ark or something. Marty, I like that, how he exits the room and then they cut to the camera so you see him actually leave. He comes in, he does all of this, he has the face peeling part, but when he's running back, he gets to the kitchen and time stands still. And he remains frozen in place. And he sort of stops mid-run. And this giant cluster of spiders starts crawling across the floor. And starts crawling up his pants leg, followed by rats, and then worms, and then vermin that begins eating his flesh. Until he's nothing but a skeleton. Until he's nothing but eaten away. And that's disgusting. It's like, I'm glad they left that out, because that's in the book, like I say. Now, Marty Casella went into a long description of this scene, especially there was a maggot wrangler that took care of the maggots that were on the, there was a guy making sure that the maggots didn't die. And this scene where he runs in the bathroom, they actually made a mold of his head and chest, or basically his upper torso, and they put a wig on it, and according to Marty Casella, the wig cost $20,000. He didn't want to screw up the effect by doing the face peeling himself, so he asked Steven Spielberg to do it for him. Spielberg was like, yeah, I'll do it. And he's like, he was just jumping for joy. He was like a kid. He was like, yeah, I'll do it. And so those are Spielberg's hands that you see peeling the skin off the face. And it was all because he didn't want to mess up this really expensive prop. And here's where we get to see the ghosts. This is kind of interesting. What was the camera picking up? Did the sensors on this camera have, what were they picking up? What were they latching onto? Because you notice the camera kind of goes up and to this door. I love this stairway, by the way. It's almost ethereal, kind of stairway to heaven, I guess. It's kind of twisty and weird. And of course, the camera finds whatever it's looking at. I love the music here too. It's just eerie. That's Jerry Goldsmith, by the way, who did the music, and he did the music for Star Trek and all this. He kind of gives it a wondrous quality, and I've always wondered, because John Williams couldn't do this one because he was busy working on E.T. So I've always wondered what John Williams' score would have sounded like. Now, I, here's the funny thing. In the book, this scene is a little more. Let's see, how do I say this? The book is a little. In the book, it's a little less sort of ethereal. In the book, the character that reaches the top of the stairs there is identified as the waiting woman, and it's a figure that sort of protects Carol Ann on the other side. And the first time I saw this, I thought this was going to turn into like Raiders of the Lost Ark. I like that it's more spectral and doesn't turn human. In the book, Tangina has a dream or has a vision about this when she basically goes to the other side. This is before she meets them. Kind of goes to the other side, and she has this really vivid image of she's floating in a place that's like neither here nor there. It's like cloudy and sort of unfocused, and it's occupied by several spirits. One is called Skedu. I don't know if we're not pronouncing that right. The second is a fire spirit called Fantabel, and the third is a tree spirit whose name is not given. And she's floating above this sort of vortex, and below it she sees hundreds of these human spirits dressed in period clothes, and they're sort of milling about aimlessly. And in the middle of them is a 5-year-old girl who keeps calling out to her mother. In the book, it's really elaborate. I love this. This scene is kind of beautiful. You know, when they're looking at the monitors. I think if they had shown her dream of these spirits, I think would have kind of taken away from the realistic feel. This movie to me is a lot like The Exorcist, in that you have your something that's grounded in an absolute reality. You know, a family that's sort of grounded in reality, and then you have a family that's grounded in reality, and then all of a sudden the spooky stuff comes in. It's like the more real you can make them, the more effective the supernatural stuff will be. Some people have thought this scene dated the movie, but I don't think it does. You know, because like Steve says, please not on 60 Minutes. You know, she says, I've got to display these. He says, please not on 60 Minutes. And she says, oh, that's incredible. You know, how many people remember That's Incredible? I've always thought of the scene where she says Marty won't be coming back. And then, of course, they get rid of Robbie. And Dana goes over to see friends. It's kind of a clever way of getting rid of extraneous characters. I always wondered if Dr. Lash was a mother, because she seems to have that mother vibe. And here we have Steve's boss, Teague, played by a wonderful actor by the name of James Karen. As of right now, he's still alive. He's in his 90s. He always on film and on television. He always plays this same character. Sort of a slimy guy, you know. I remember him in Return of the Living Dead. I remember him. He played a bigot on the Jeffersons. He's been in a lot of stuff. He's one of those faces that you've seen a million times. That's a real house, by the way. It's on Roxbury Drive in Simi Valley, California. There are people living there. I love this scene. It's probably one of the scariest scenes in the entire movie because the effects are nothing but just sound effects. She walks to the door. Even people who hate this movie love this scene just because it is so restrained. And you don't know what's coming. This camera dollies in. Just got Dana's shirt. Slowly opens the door. And then boom! I love that. I love that scene. And they don't show you anything. They show you nothing. It's great. I love that. This is kind of where the movie catches up with the theme that Spielberg had in Jaws. You know, when they had the Murray Hamilton as the mayor who wanted to keep the beaches open even though there was a shark eating people. Even though the shark had eaten 2 people and a dog. Here they're doing something a lot worse. I mean, this is just... I actually, at some point, I'm going to look up, see, this has got to be a crime. You know. It's got to be a crime to do this. You know, moving a cemetery. My question is, somebody had to notice. You know, they moved a cemetery, but somebody had to notice. This is sort of that, it plays with that sort of corporate monster thing that they did in the movies in the early 80s where the corporations were always the villains, the people in suits, you know. James Cameron's just wonderful in this. And I mean, even he gets a redemption at the end, you know. He kind of realizes what he's done. That's a big cemetery, too. I wonder if that's a matte painting. I've tried to read the headstones. I love this slow reveal. That Stephen suddenly, very ominously, begins to realize what's going on. That terror on his face. When he suddenly realizes not only that his house is sitting on top of a cemetery, but that this may be the cause of all of his problems. I love James Cameron. No one's complained until now. Oh, that's horrible. That's even worse than keeping the beaches open, man. Ugh. So, if that's true, you would have to wonder, was the cemetery just under their house? Was that a small cemetery that was just under their house? Because you would imagine it'd be widespread. I mean, you know. And here we have Dangina. which side of the rainbow are we working on? I had a kindergarten teacher who looked just like her. So she wasn't a little person, but... The damn thing about her is you never quite know what to make of her. Is she a charlatan? Is she the real deal? And in the end, you realize she really doesn't know what she's doing. The book makes it absolutely clear what's going on with her. You know, she has all these visions, and you know, Skadu and Fantabel and the Tree Spirit and the Waiting Woman and all of that. You know, it lays that out very clearly. So she is the genuine article. I like Steven. It's like, how many more nuts are you going to bring into my house? I use this line every once in a while. I am addressing the living. You know, when people ignore me. I don't like being ignored. Of course, you wonder, did she really hear them talking, you know? Like right here where she says, yeah, I know they were whispering, but did she really hear them? Or is she just really psychic? You don't really know with her. It's a strange thing. Again, another Spielberg moment. Really, really hardcore Spielberg moment. Is that she sits there and she goes through all this rigmarole about Diane really looks like, yeah, okay, whatever. Diane kind of walks toward her and has this skeptical look on her face. I remember when Siskel and Ebert reviewed this movie. Roger really liked it as kind of just a, you know, summer throwaway. I think he saw it more or less the way Spielberg does now. You know, it's just a nice little roller coaster ride. As I've said before, I see it a little more than that. And you know, it means a little more to me than that, but I remember Roger Ebert was, he enjoyed it, he had fun. He said, it's not perfect, but I enjoyed it. Gene Siskel didn't like it. He said, it didn't make any sense, it wasn't scary, and he said, and they try to explain it, you know, he points directly to this scene, I think. And, you know, all this stuff about spectral light, he says I haven't talked to a single person who can explain it to me. Well, I don't think there really is any explaining it. Because I think she does a fine job. She's in another dimension. She's being... she's comforting people who are being held by the beast. And she can guide them to the other side, but the beast is holding them back. I mean, what more do you need to know, really? I have always said... this is a great scene, and early in, you know, when I saw it as a teenager, my view on it was that I was just like, you know, I thought it was brilliant. But now, listening to it, I'm wondering, you know, she knows all this stuff. Probably does have visions, but how much does she really know? Because she thinks the house is clean at the end. she's very convincing. You know, is she a charlatan, or what is she? You know. I'm noticing the population of the film has dropped. As I said before, they got rid of Marty. Robbie took off, and Dana's with friends, and it was a way to get rid of extraneous characters. Because when the rescue scene comes along, you don't really need them. This is a very Spielberg scene, again, just like the one with Dr. Lesh earlier. It's almost like she's practiced this speech. See, and here's the thing. You see the characters, they're really concerned about what's going on. And again, if we didn't care about these people, this speech would mean nothing. The part where she says, I don't know what hovers over this house. I remember when they did commercials for this on TV, you know, on HBO, and then when it was when it was on ABC. They love that line. That was the money shot. They love that line. This is where Diane's starting to buy all of this. You know? Like that scene earlier where she just breaks down in tears, like, yeah, fine, please, just tell me what's going on. Beast? What beast? I had a guy tell me one time that he automatically thought of the X-Men when she said that. What has Beast got to do with this? That's a really good performance. You know, Zelda Rubinstein, she's really good in this. Now, some people have pointed to a continuity error, and that in a minute Steve talks to her. Now, she said she could only hear her mother's voice, and then she gets Steve to talk to her, and he does. But you'll notice, as I said before, Carolyn doesn't really answer him. Well, she doesn't really answer him. She just starts. She just kind of starts screaming. If I'm wrong, let me know. Just let me know in the comments section. I'm not an expert on this film. I have to admit, this scene is kind of lame now. It does seem kind of, you know, overacted and what have you. But, but in this situation, how would you act? You know, I'm reminded of something that I heard. I think it was Eddie Murphy said, why is it in haunted house movies that white people don't just leave the house? He said, "Have you ever seen Poltergeist? Not only do they not leave, they invite more white people over." That doorknob gets a lot of screen time, I noticed. That's a cool lighting effect. I love that. It's interesting they put, the tennis balls in the rope. It's like, what did they think they were going to do? I guess you figure that, I don't know how they figured out that it's going to come through the living room ceiling. It's like, I guess the house is like an artery. It goes in one place and comes out the other. I guess from the jewelry that fell through the ceiling earlier. In the book, it kind of indicates that all of this takes place over 4 days. It seems like it takes weeks. From the moment that Carol Ann is taken till the moment that the house disappears. It's 4 days. And again, you have to wonder, didn't the neighbors hear any of this? Now, I know they have the window boarded shut, but something someone pointed out earlier, at one point, was the mother's the hero in this. It's like mothers in horror films up to this point kind of got a bad rap, like Psycho and Carrie and movies like that. It's like mothers kind of got a really bad rap. So it's interesting. This one is the one where the mother is the hero. She's the one that goes through, and she's the one that there was a commentator who pointed that out. I have to give credit where credit is due. There was a commentator who pointed that out. His name was Minty Fresh. He did a commentary about this, or his handle was Minty Fresh. This gelatin stuff coming off the rope, I always wondered what that was. It's like, are we to suggest that the house is an artery now? Earlier we saw the top of the rope just sort of ended like a weird rope trick. It was like it just kind of disappears into the whatever. I always wonder, why does Diane think that that Carol Ann won't come to her father? I never figured that out. And I have to say, and a lot of people disagree with me on this, but I really like the fact that we don't ever see where they went. They spoiled that in Poltergeist 2, but of course Poltergeist 2 was garbage anyway. The fact that it's left a mystery, and the fact that 95% of the movie takes place in this house, I like that. I like that we don't have to see it. It's not necessary. You know, it's just not necessary. We get it. You know, we don't have to see the other realm. I saw the trailer for or the remake that comes out. This commentary, by the way, is being recorded just a little over a month before the remake comes out. It comes out 32 days from now, and of course it's quick cut, so you can't really see much. But I noticed the rope is in there, and it looks like it's tied to the wall. But I don't get that. Maybe it'll make more sense when I see it. But now this scene where she goes into a trance, she's actually laying on the floor in the book. This scene I don't like, when the head comes out of the closet door. Because it's edited to death. Again, I keep picking at the editing, but it's just, it takes away a lot of the terror because the scene keeps jumping all over the place. The funny thing is, when he yells no, he yells like no Quigley. I can never tell what he says. It's something. Maybe you'll know better than I do, but this scene is kind of the rebirth, you know. Why is Diane wearing Japanese clogs? I don't get that. Now Ryan is filming. It didn't look like he was filming all that other stuff. Maybe it was on a stand or something, but it looks like mucus. I think when they made the scene, it was probably gelatin. She's adorable. Even though she is covered in snot and soap. She had this look like, "Daddy, you're pulling my hair." That scene has kind of gone down as one of this. That line right there has gone down as kind of one of this movie's most famous lines. "This house is clean," and I'm like, no, it's not. no, it's not. I like how quickly they're trying to get out of this house. Dana looks younger here. You know, she's 16, but now she looks like 12. She gets gray hair. You know, there's an old urban legend that, you know, people who are really seriously scared by something will prematurely gray. That may be the case here. I just like how fast Steve's moving. He's like trying to get the hell out of this house. My question is, where are they going to go? They never really mentioned that. Diane says, "Smell that mimosa." That comes from 1944 movie called The Uninvited. I guess Spielberg was a fan. I always wondered, who are you going to sell this house to? Because you have to disclose. I mean, but how are you going to disclose it? I don't know much about real estate, but I know you have to disclose what happened here. She's got like this Reed Richards gray going on both sides. It's kind of sexy, actually. I think I would have just taken the family to the motel first. So she goes in the bathroom to get rid of the gray. So much for sexy, That's a really nice tub. I love that bathtub. I just noticed they've got a tub that's separate from the shower. That's interesting. And of course, the first thing they do is they leave the kids alone, They have put a lot of faith in Tangina to stay in this house, This house is clean, you really want to live by that? And they put a lot of faith in it to stay in that bedroom, too. And to leave that clown out, too. That clown terrified my generation. Clowns are creepy. That's just the way it is. This time it doesn't work. Throwing the jacket. She's sleeping with Luke, he's sleeping with Yoda. I always thought JoBeth Williams was sexy. That's just... I sound like I'm babbling, I'm sorry. It's just... There's a lot of time before the big finale. It's a beautiful dog. It's been said that when Oliver Robbins, when they filmed this scene with Oliver Robbins, that God, that's creepy. That empty chair. That when they filmed that scene, the because the clown, of course, strangles him, and it said that he really was being strangled. And in the interview I saw recently, it was said that he actually didn't remember it. He actually didn't remember all of that. And here's the thing. Now, I talk about the remake. In this movie, the clown is a surprise. It's kind of a ticking time bomb that you know will go off eventually. And it was not part of the original trailer. You just saw it when you saw the movie. And in the advertisements for the remake, the clown is a major part of the advertising. And I think that's a mistake. I mean, one of the posters for the movie is practically the doll's mugshot. That tells me they don't have any confidence in their material or in their movie. I mean, that scene is actually in the trailer, you know. I guess they want to just assure you that it's there and all that. Just otherwise, you won't show up. The clown, by the way, the prop from the movie, is actually on display at Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas. I haven't actually been there, but I've seen pictures of it, and you know, it's there with the guns from Alien and all this other stuff, and it's really cool. I'd love to see it someday. It's the this monster that rears its head here is actually, if you listen carefully, the noise from it is the MGM lion. I actually think this skull looks like a lion skull too. You know, it's kind of interesting. But yeah, it's on display at Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas, and it's got the happy face, not the mean one. You know. There's also another sort of urban legend about this scene. When Diane falls in the thing, and there are all the skeletons. That the skeletons were real. They look real to me. But to be honest with you, if I were the actor making this scene, I would be less worried about the real skeletons than being in the rain and the water with, you know, cables and lights and electricity and all that. That would be... Skeletons can only scare you to death. You know, corpses can only scare you to death. The electricity, that's a little more dangerous than skeletons, you know. I said the difference between Spielberg and Tobe Hooper. You know, the styles that they have. This is a very Tobe Hooper. This is very, very Tobe Hooper. And then again, the neighbors won't help. Of course, I'll be honest, I don't think I would have gone in there anyway. I don't think I would have gone in there either. I love this hallway. It is so creepy. It's like messing with your sense of perception, you know. Now, I mentioned earlier that the chair stacking scene, I didn't know how anyone did it. And there was another scene. This one, I still don't know how they did this. It's probably a neat effect, probably just a normal effect, but I think I really can't figure out how they did it. Probably cables and wires and things like that. Carol Ann doesn't seem to be moving. It's one of those things, truth be told, I don't know how they did it, and really I don't want to know. And if it's sucking everything up, why didn't it suck the bedroom up? Or suck the bed up? I ask a lot of questions when I watch this movie, despite the fact that it is my favorite horror movie. And why did the suction stop when they got in the hallway, you know? Well, wouldn't you love to come home to that? I don't really like to question this movie for logic, although I've been doing it all through this commentary. But I always wondered, why did the coffins come up vertically? You know, why did they rise through the? Did they turn when they were, you know, coffins go on the ground laying down? How would they, you know, they come up vertically? James Cameron just has such a great face. He's got those big eyes. Never get your keys when you need them. Oh, crap. You just start throwing bodies on your car. No. Oh, I forgot about Dana. You'll notice it, but she's got a hickey on her neck. The bodies extend all the way out to the curb. I noticed that. Turn the car over. This is another fact. I've heard how they did it, but it's still, you know, I've heard how it was, how the effect was done, you know, where the house basically implodes. But it's really, really cool. I still love that. In the book, it was actually Stephen that was watching this, not Teague. There's a scene right before this where Stephen and Teague are talking in a bar, and Steve does, if I remember correctly, does actually tell him to go to hell. Teague realizes the gravity of what he's done. Although, to be honest with you, if I had just seen a house eat itself, I don't think I would be really focused on my own personal sins. I think that would put me in therapy for about 5 years. I always say the best horror movies don't have a happy ending. Horror movies shouldn't have a happy ending. I mean, they're all together. That's good, but Dr. Fantasy is the nickname of Frank Marshall, who produced this film. Y'all look so sad. But it's a sad, but it's also a positive. I mean, they... It's sad, but it's also a positive. I mean, they got their family back, you know. I'd love to know what happens next, but I think I could write it better than the sequel did. In the book, he pushes the TV set outside and it rolls down the sidewalk. And so Poltergeist comes to an end, and it was very much a Steven Spielberg production. One more little note that I want to, before I leave, I want to let you know. This song, which is called Carol Ann's Theme, the Lullaby, also has another name. It's also called Bless This House. And this song, if you don't know, also has lyrics, which I won't sing, but I will tell you if I'm reading this correctly. As evening shadows grow deep and long, reaching across the bed, mother and father hear children's prayers now as they bow their heads. Bless this house, and the souls within, through the night till it's light again. Guide our hearts through the dark to the breaking day. Bless this house, we pray. Save me from bad dreams if they should come, raging into my heart. Keep us together, one family, nothing can tear us apart. Bless this house, and the souls within, through the night till it's light again. Guide our hearts through the dark to the breaking day. Bless this house, we pray. Give us arms to hold that are right and strong when the night goes on too long. Bring us a morning wide as the sea, where love will be our ark. Standing together, one family, nothing can tear us apart. That's actually creepier than the movie, than anything else in the movie, and especially if you hear this choir singing it. It's actually on the album, and you can find it on YouTube also. Well, that's Poltergeist. I hope I haven't bored you too much. As I said, I'm the Armchair Critic. Visit my website. I'm at www.armchaircinema.com. Also, on my website, I have listed in the description the full list of all of the differences between the novelization and the book, if you're interested. Join me next week. I'll be talking about a weird sci-fi movie called Galaxina. And until then, see you later.